Hello collectors and space fans, I'm Jim Frangone. Welcome back to another episode of Taking Up Space, the place where space history lives and where every artifact tells a story. If you're as passionate as I am about the history of spaceflight and collecting vintage space age memorabilia and artifacts, be sure to click on the subscribe button and notification bell down below so that you don't miss out on a single episode. In this episode, I'm going to reveal a couple of artifacts that speak directly to everyone's favorite dog in space. I am not speaking of the Russian dog Laika, who became the first animal in space when she launched in November of 1957. Rather, I'm speaking of everyone's favorite beagle, Snoopy. As we'll see, Snoopy has a long and storied background with NASA and the space program, and the artifact I'm going to reveal has got a story that connects directly to the Apollo 11 moon landing in July of 1969. So with that in mind, let's first learn a little bit about the birth of Snoopy the astronaut at NASA. And to do that, we'll start by giving you a little bit of background about the vintage poster that you can see behind me here, just over my shoulder. As one could rightly imagine, safety became a major point of focus for everyone in the NASA workforce after the Apollo 1 fire and the tragic loss of America's first three Apollo astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, during a routine ground test in January of 1967. As such, NASA wanted a way to promote a greater awareness among its employees and contractors of the impact they had on flight safety, flight crews, and their missions. Much like Smokey the Bear did for the National Forest Service in preventing forest fires, NASA wanted a way to use a symbol for spaceflight that would be well known and accepted by the public. Charles Schulz, the creator of the Peanuts comic strip, was an avid supporter of the US space program, and he welcomed the idea of using Snoopy for the award. Schulz and the United Feature Syndicate agreed to let NASA use the likeness of Snoopy the astronaut at no cost, and Schulz himself even drew the image of the award pin and the promotional posters. And thus, Snoopy the astronaut was born. As mentioned here on the poster, soon you will see Snoopy the astronaut emblems worn on the lapels of some of your fellow workers. The Silver Snoopy Award is a special honor awarded to NASA employees and contractors for outstanding achievement related to human flight safety or mission success. The awarded pins are flown in space, and they are given personally by a NASA astronaut as it represents the astronaut's own recognition of excellence. It's presented at the workplace of the recipient with the recipient's co-workers present. It's a major reward. With that, Snoopy and the other Peanuts characters began to take on a life of their own at NASA, and most notably they played heavily during the mission of Apollo 10. As you can see here in these photos, their personas were well placed within the public consciousness during the Apollo 10 mission. Now, from all of this, you might guess that today's artifact would be a Silver Snoopy pin that was, as I alluded to earlier, connected to the Apollo 11 mission. That guess would be incorrect. The Snoopy I'm referring to is this one right here, kind of like the one displayed a couple of minutes back. But this one in particular, however, has an incredible story to reveal. You see, it came from the collection of a former NASA flight director, and it was actually in mission control when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. That flight director was Neil Hutchinson. He served as flight director on Apollo 17, through the Skylab missions, and well into the space shuttle program. But on July 20th, 1969, Neil Hutchinson was in Mission Control's Spacecraft Analysis Room, or the SPAN room, for the Command and Service Module. For the history of this artifact in that day, let's go right to the letter from Neil Hutchinson that accompanied this particular Snoopy doll. The Snoopy dolls began to appear around the Manned Spacecraft Center before Apollo 10. The Apollo 10 lunar module call sign was Snoopy, and the command module Charlie Brown, obviously named after the cartoon characters. The blue lunar contact buttons began appearing after Apollo 10, but prior to Apollo 11. The button represents a blue light indicator in the lunar module that lights up contact when the leg probes touch the lunar surface. I believe the Snoopy doll appeared in the SPAN room during Apollo 10, and there was likely more than one. In any event, most of us got our lunar contact button, and I affixed mine to this Snoopy doll where it spent the Apollo 11 mission in the SPAN room of Mission Control on the top of the console I was manning, CSM representative. After the mission, I took the doll back to my office, where it resided for several years, eventually migrating to my home and to storage. It has been in my possession since the Apollo 11 splashdown. And that's what this artifact reveals to me. If these pieces of plastic and fabric and metal could talk, they would offer up a first-hand account from Mission Control of the first time human beings landed on the moon. It's more than the sum of its parts. It was there. It witnessed it all, and that's the magic. It was a part of the Apollo 11 lunar team, and it is an actual part of that history, and that is downright fascinating. Snoopy's been there through Apollo, Skylab, and the Space Shuttle program, and his story and role with NASA continues to this day. You know, back in 1969, someone else who had one of these as a kid was astronaut Mike Massimino. He even took his along with him into space in 2009 during a mission to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. How's that for a cool factor? From the interviews I've seen with Mike Massimino, he still displays his Snoopy, and it speaks just as much to him and to those with whom he shares it with. So as we focus our attention on a new age in space exploration, whether that be with Artemis or Orion, Crew Dragon, Boeing CST, or Sierra Nevada's Dream Chaser, and whether our attention is on the International Space Station, the Lunar Gateway, or the lunar surface, or even the surface of Mars, you can rest assured that Snoopy will be along for the ride. Decked out in white or orange, he'll be keeping a watchful eye on things to make sure that the men and women of our space program get there safely, and that we will indeed once again hear those famous words, "Houston, the Beagle has landed." That's the story behind the items in this installment. I hope that through these two artifacts that you've enjoyed learning something about how NASA brought a little bit of fun and the right kind of competition into what is ultimately the single most important aspect of crewed spaceflight, crew safety. Spaceflight will always be a terribly unforgiving job of high risk, but because of Snoopy and the Spaceflight Awareness Program, our astronauts will fly with the knowledge that their craft were put together by hands with the greatest of human capability and care. One more bit of reassurance in a long chain of many things. And that's it for today, folks. I want to thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up down below, and feel free to let me know your thoughts by dropping me an email at jim.takinupspace@gmail.com. Until next time, collectors and space fans, keep your head held high and keep your eyes on the stars.